No contest. No contest.
Oh. Oh. This is how we do it. Oh man, this is how we prove that it's live and not pre-recorded. This is how we do it.
I want to ask
Freaking
for a
ridiculous.
judge on
Freaking ridiculous.
Armada's turn cycle for his own stream.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Everything falls apart. I literally leave it for 1 week and everything is broken. Welcome to Give and Take, everyone. The show where everything's made up, everything's broken all the time. Points do matter, but not to the extent that you think. They matter about as much as Brody's 24th PTI. That's about how much they matter. When you've got 24 of them, I mean, at this point, you just hand them out like candy on Halloween, which is pretty cool. But today, we're going to dive into some great topics. We're going to have some fun, a little bit more laid back, low key. We don't have anything super major to prep for. We're not talking Pro Tour. We're not talking some drama. I don't think there's any drama. It's a drama-free thing today.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
Feels pretty good. Feels pretty good.
Oh, you know.
I could start something real quick if you want.
I'm sure you could. I'm sure we could come up with something. But if you don't know the format of the show, I'm going to fire some questions at them. They're going to give me their hot takes. If I find it particularly spicy, I may give them points. Today, I might feel a little stingy because I just woke up and chose violence since everything freaking broke for the past 25 minutes. So that's what we're doing. Hey, topic number one, before we jump into, is actually a special topic for us because, gentlemen, topic one is actually what started this entire show. So I'm really excited to talk about that. But before we do, we've got Breezy. Breezy, how are you doing?
What's up, dude? I'm doing good. I'm here. So we're doing it, man.
You love to see it. You love to hear it.
Yeah.
If someone says can't hear, volume is low.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Don't you do this to me, chat. Don't you dare do this to me.
Are they messing? Are they messing?
They're messing. I just turned it on. They're messing.
I'm turning it on right now. You son of a gun. Yeah, no, it works.
There's a button.
Fine. It works fine.
There's a button on your computer or phone that can increase the volume.
Well, you know what? I just turned up the gain on the mic. I heard that's the answer. Isn't that the answer?
Oh.
There's some inside jokes. Directed at none other than TCG Talk. Just got to crank the gain up. That's all you got to do, right?
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, I'm normally the one that has the mic issues, but the funny thing is I'll get one video where I have one comment that says I'm too soft, and literally the comment below it says, I can hear your breathing. I'm like, I don't know which one to believe. Yeah, no.
Cross your fingers and pray. That's all you got to do, my friend. Pyronic EX in chat, by the way. Shout out to Pyronic EX. I can't remember the last time I didn't see Pyronic around in the channel. I think they have been part of this channel for like maybe the duration. Pyronic EX, how have you been here since the beginning? Before we get into the topics, I just want to say it's about to be May. It's going to be May soon. And in doing so, we're going to hit 8 years of making YouTube videos.
Dude.
On the DM ARMADA YouTube channel.
I didn't know your YouTube channel was that old. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I will have been making videos for 8 years. It was May the 16th when I started making YouTube videos. And we're going to close in on the 8-year mark. And we're closing in on 20,000 subscribers as well, which is kind of fun.
Insane.
What happens if they happen at the same day?
You should just stop. You should just end on a high note.
I have legit considered
done
before. Yeah, what if they happen at the same day and there's an eclipse? Something has to come
for
on.
sure.
There is a
Yeah.
lunar eclipse in like a full lunar eclipse in January of next year.
Let's plan it for that. A bunch of people unsub so we can plan it for that. That's what we'll do.
Oh my gosh.
That's what we'll do. Oh, Cusco TV has a birthday a couple of days after that. That's pretty sick. Okay,
Nice.
I've buried the lead enough. Let's talk about the first topic, which is a very special one to the channel and to this podcast, if you will. It's a podcast. It's a show. I don't know.
Whatever you want.
6 months ago, Legend Story Studios announced that they were changing the way that the Living Legend status worked. When a hero reached the Living Legend status, normally they would Living Legend out at the end of that particular season. So, for example, if a hero hits the Living Legend status at the beginning of a season, they are still around and still available to take a lot of points and kind of just gobble up meta share until the end of said season. So like 4 weeks long. LSS said, no, we don't want that. And instead, what's going to happen is when a hero finally reaches that pinnacle, that moment, crosses the precipice, if you will, into Living Legend status, the very next week, they will move on. They will be out of rotation. You can play them at the Armory in that subsequent week, but the moment that the sort of the season kicks back off in the second week or the third week or the fourth week, whenever it happens, that hero is gone. And there was a lot of question marks, a lot of worry, a lot of like maybe nerves, if you will, about how that would be implemented and how that would feel once it was implemented. So to start things off, my question is, now that we've seen Dromai go through this process where she picks up 200 some odd points from Pro Tour and then crosses the finish line at a Battle Hardened, how do you feel this system is functioning? At least for the one hero, for the first hero that we see. Breezy, kick us off.
It's doing everything that it's supposed to. I mean, we saw when this announcement was made, there was, all the division, right? Like, oh, this is, kind of upsetting. You want to see a hero if you're committed. You want to see it for the full season. But I'm on the boat of, dude, once it's hit that threshold, just pull the plug, let it, let the meta breathe, especially in the middle of a season, shaking things up like it is now in the middle of Proquest. This is like everything I'd hoped for. I think I even tweeted at one point, like, I hope that this happens. We get a real world example of this happening in the middle of something, even like something as small as an RTN. That'd be fantastic. But we got it in the middle of a Proquest. And so, yeah, I mean, we saw Starvo take like, 500 plus more LL points than he should have. Lexi was up there with just way more than she needed to. And I think that had it happened to Lexi, the discourse would be a little bit less aggressive. But because it's happening to Dromai, the Dromai fandom is a little less, like, the people that don't like Dromai can tolerate her. The people who didn't like Lexi hated Lexi. They wanted to see her go immediately. So I think this is just a weird kind of perfect storm in the case that the people that are the loudest are probably playing Dromai, so they don't want to see it happen to her. And I think that's just that's their problem. The rest of us are seeing something incredible happen, and it shakes the meta up. If I were playing in a PQ this week, I would be, extremely happy with anything, knowing I don't have to face any dragons. Well, so that's great.
Parker, you can get in the car with me. We're gonna go drive to the PQ. We can go and play in it if you want, and you can experience that exact thing.
That's the big thing that I'm trying to convince myself. That's why you go play a Dromai-less event for the first time in years, right?
Indeed. So. All right, TCG Talk. What do you think? Do you think this system is functioning well? What do you think?
Oh, I think it completely proves like that sometimes we get a little bit upset about things we shouldn't, because I do remember that a lot of people were super not happy with like, oh, I'm gonna have to switch decks mid whatever season and it's just gonna be a hassle and then people aren't gonna know and they're gonna show up to the event. And I have personally not seen one story where that's happened. And I think if you're paying $30 plus and spending $500 on a deck to go to a Proquest, you probably should keep up with where people are living Legend, but that's just me. But yeah, I think this process is showing that a lot of people are overreacting at the start. I think, like Parker said, I think Dromai is honestly the least hated hero that's living Legend so far. I think Briar's a close second because Briar kind of had like a less than stellar ending just because she kind of limped into Living Legend. But yeah. I do think Dromai is the least hated hero, even like as an assassin player, like I don't dislike Jeremiah, right? Like I don't hate the deck or anything. It is a burden to play, but it is what it is because the deck takes a lot of skill and a lot of piloting. And prior to Tome of Imperial Flame, it didn't do anything that felt like stupid broken. It just felt like a deck that's good into some things and really good in others. Anyway, so that's one thing. I do think the way Jeremiah Living Legend helped a little bit personally, and I don't understand the discourse because in my opinion, if Jeremiah would have Living Legend in that PTI event the week before ProQuest started, like I still don't think you should be upset, but I could understand it because people are like, okay, I'm going into PQ season now. All of a sudden, I have to switch a week prior. I could see people getting a little bit upset about this, but everyone knew going into week one.
Yeah.
Jeremiah is Living Legending this weekend. Like,
Yeah.
so you basically, once she did not win that PTI event, you knew in 3 weeks she is gone. So you had some time to then build your backup deck, right? So people had more time. It wasn't like a sudden thing. So that's kind of the reason I think that it's transitioned a little bit smoother. But like Parker said, I think Jeremiah is the least disliked of all the heroes of Elite and Legend so far, of people that don't play the hero. And also the people who love Jeremiah really love Jeremiah, like Guy and Mara, and people who have like $1,000 decks, crazy stuff. Like it's really cool seeing those people get to play their hero. And I think a lot of players that are really invested, like enthusiasts, really loved watching that. Like watching those players that have spent so much time and money on that hero. They didn't just hop to the hero. No disrespect to any other hero that Living Legend, but they've been on that hero since day one. We haven't really seen that with a lot of the other Living Legend heroes for the most part.
I would argue
At least not as
Icelander.
much,
I would
so.
think Icelander is a
Icelander's
bit
another
more
one,
like
yeah.
that. I know people jumped on because of Bullander, and it feels a little bit more like an easy to pick up hybrid build, but I think there were a large contingent of players that were diehard Icelander fans from the beginning. I think Wizard and Illusionist both kind of go hand in hand in being and breeding specialists within their particular classes. But I think maybe that's just where the game's going. I guess my follow-up question to this, well, I have a couple. One of them is one that you sort of touched on, and it's this idea of like, this is an opportunity for us to reflect as a community and see something that has been changed and reevaluate where we stand on it. And perhaps we were too gung-ho, or perhaps many were too panicked or worried about the consequences, and we only looked at the complete negatives. Now, when we first talked back in the episode 0 of this Give and Take show, when we didn't even have a name for it, we kind of came across this this topic and came to a head where we just decided that it wasn't as big of a deal. But is there something else that LSS has done recently or in the past that you feel like, with hindsight looking back on it, is actually a much more measured approach than perhaps the Twitter fan base maybe gives credit for? TCG Talk, what are your thoughts?
The one thing that I personally was really gung-ho against, not like demonstrative, but I did voice that in, like, it was the change in the pro points or Living Legend points, to say pro points from a different thing. Living Legend points, like how much yes, you can tell. So when they first changed it, there was a lot more Living Legend points on the board, right? Battle Hardens went up to 40, and people were like, okay, heroes are going to hyper speed Living Legend. It's just not going to be fun because your top hero will be in the game like less than 6 months at all times. Blah, blah, blah. And now they've slightly tweaked the Proquest points from 4 to 3. And you can tell that it definitely was a more measured approach, I think, than people realized, including myself. I thought personally that, like, even looking in this Proquest season, like, I thought personally, like, okay, 2 or 3 heroes, like 6 months ago, I would have said 2 or 3 heroes could live in Legend during this season. And now it doesn't look that way, because when you combine with the small tweaks they've done with the more open metagame that's being presented right now, I think it made me realize that, like, okay, it's a lot more measured than I saw. Because when I first saw those changes, I was like, 40 points for Battle Harden, which, depending on where you are, is like a really big PQ sometimes. Like, at first I thought that might be a little bit negative, but it's been really good, and it's been really fun to watch that. So that's been my take of something I was wrong on at the start, I think.
What do you think, Breezy? What's something that perhaps either you or just the community at large maybe had one reaction to that could have been more measured, having looked at it this way?
Man, I'm thinking on it about it as a more grand scheme, because there's two things, right? Like the dialing down of the power levels in general, going literally admitting Fab 1.0 is a thing and Fab 2.0 is a thing. Like they made these stark contrasts to say, we understand that this game was developed in a vacuum during COVID. And now that the world has access and they're out playing the game, things might need a fine tuning or two. And so I think that is just a hard lesson and showing like, hey, they're willing to make tough calls, things that arguably could hurt them in the long run, but that just goes to show how much they care for the growth and the longevity of the game. But then the other thing is literally every other, like every ban or restricted has been mostly either jarring or like, oh, that makes sense. But even the jarring ones, you have to consider, like, if they didn't pull the plug preemptively, they've banned certain things proactively and just been like, look, this can't hit the streets. So, but then people are like, why? What happened? They start playing with it, like, holy crap, they had a pulse on this. So I think it just shows the pulse that LSS has. I mean, you think, look at KO, dude. They gave him one arm. If they gave him two arms, the hero would be destructive. And so that, like, those tiny little microscopic decisions, I think this is just in line with that, where they're like, look, if we just do this now, we have to start doing this weekly thing of just kind of pulling the plug on a hero when they meet the criteria, because otherwise it's just out of hand.
Yeah, I totally agree. Roll the Initiative Gaming in chat actually brings up an interesting question, and let's go ahead and ask that question to both of y'all, see what y'all think. Do you think that the success of heavy hitters before this rotation of Dromai and the first proving moment, the prove it moment of how this is going to function, do you think that softens the blow because that set was so well received with so many good, powerful heroes? Do you think that that has any factor into our perception of the rotation? Or without that set, are you still feeling like this process is smooth and, just like very well designed? What are your thoughts, Breezy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely, they've admitted they've missed the mark on a few sets. Like I think it was Dusk Till Dawn. They've said kind of missed the mark. They're still kind of making things up in that set. And then personally for me, Bright Lights, I think they're just kind of coming around. So had this happened around those set releases, things would be different, right? There would be a little bit less to pick from. But we got KO and Victor, Kasai, Betsy and Olympia are somewhere there floating around, probably not in contention for making this conversation. But those three heroes in themselves, they're nothing like Dromai, but they give people an opportunity to say, cool, my favorite hero's gone. I don't have to go to WTR to look for my next hero. Like there's relevant brand new heroes that are doing extremely powerful things, really interesting and fun mechanic things that can make an easier segue off in the blow. I think that's a huge good call out. I didn't put that together, but that's a great point.
What do you think, TCG Talk? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm not being contrarian for the sake of it. I don't think it had much play. I do think the health of the set did help the game as a whole, right? Be more healthier and feel like you can play more heroes. Like I've always told people, the last 3 months is the first time I've ever, since Monarch, when I started playing, where I could legitimately go to a new player and say, every class is worth buying. I never could say that before, I'd say like the last 2 months. So it has helped that. But as far as softening the blow of Dromai, I don't think it really did anything because Dromai is very good into every single heavy hitter's hero, with the exception of Victor can be like 50-50, but Dromai dunks on Kasai and even New Dory. So I don't think it changed the perception of Dromai. Like if anything, you could argue that Dromai was a little bit more contested because of heavy hitters, because you had these cool new heroes like Kasai, who literally, if you sit down against a Dromai, you might as well just go get a sandwich if the Dromai is halfway competent. So I don't think it helped soften the blow of Dromai, but I do think it obviously helped the game, right? We had 2 sets in a row, and that right, wrong, or indifferent, people were kind of mixed feelings about it. And heavy hitters, this is the first set since Outsiders that I think where everyone was universally like, this is a good set. And we'll see how Mistveil changes as things goes in that too.
Yeah. If I had to fall on one of those sides, I actually personally think that the success of heavy hitters does not have any real bearing on how we receive this rotation. The rotation's bound to happen. I think if anything, the way the reception is bolstered by the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, the rotation occurred in the middle of ProQuest season. So some people had the opportunity to run Dromai out there and get like her last hurrah, but we also were preemptively going into the season knowing she would hit it week 1. And so people had the capacity, like you've both talked about, to say their last goodbyes and to start prepping for, their other heroes or their next endeavor within the game of Flesh and Blood. I think that is the big thing. If this ever occurs, wherein a hero hits, like maybe picks up a world championship win and they're at like 715 points, that perhaps will be a day where we have a different conversation, because that will be a day where that hero almost sort of blinks out of existence. And that will be the turning point, perhaps, of where we see the other side of this system. I think this is almost the best case scenario. I mean, anything better would be like coming out of maybe national season and then hitting that lull where you maybe play in blitz events and a hero hits it right at the end of nationals. That would probably be best case scenario for this implementation of this system. And perhaps worst case scenario is a hero just hitting 300 points, being at that sort of precipice. But the nice thing is that it is very easy and accessible to find how many points any hero has at any given moment. And once a hero gets into that range and we start approaching world championships, a lot of people are going to talk about the capacity. If that hero is pretty good in the meta, people are going to talk about the capacity for them to rotate. So even in the worst case, I'm not necessarily sure we have to worry that much about this. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this went. I think it went very well, and I think LSS was right even back in November to see how this was going to play out and set us up for this type of success. So I think this is a huge win for them. Do y'all agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could add one thing, it doesn't have to go to points, and this is just a hunch, but I think LSS is slowly forming classes into archetypes, right? Like you see Ninja is going to be about combo, right? Zen is now still about combo. It seems to me Illusionist, they're trying to move away from Spectre and it's going to go to Ward, right? Whereas Assassin's going to be all on stealth. And I think eventually, in my opinion, they're going to get to a point in like 2 years where like if your hero LL's the same mechanic that you enjoy, they might not have some of the specificities that you enjoy about the hero or the thematics, but you'll be able to transition easier. It won't be like this crazy like Jeremiah to Prism where it's like completely different. Sure. I think they're trying to make each class have archetypes. So like when you do lose your hero mid-season, if you want to stay in your class, it's an easier transition. Yeah, that kind of opens up a whole nother question line that we could maybe dive into perhaps at a later date, or maybe we can save it till the end of, like heroes versus archetypes and how you would best do that. I'll write it down because I have some ideas there. But I want to get to the second topic because this is the perfect time to talk about it. Coming out of the first week of ProQuests, we saw that the lion's share of the wins, or the majority of the wins, majority is the wrong word, the most amount of wins went to Dromai. And perhaps that was the case because people were saying their final goodbyes. And we also saw that at the end of Road to Nationals season that she was already taking up that meta share as well. So it's not too surprising to see her at the top of the list. But right behind her yet again is none other than our boy KO. And
it's your boy.
It's your boy KO, one-armed and proud. And here's the thing about KO is he's just continued to be there at the top. I mean, if we look at the top 8 of the Pro Tour that was most recently played in LA, there were 4 KOs in that top 8. Now, of course, KO didn't win because the best case scenario happened and we all got to meme out of our minds in Dromai's winning. But in that place, there was a real capacity for KO to just grab the win. KO has consistently shown he's been one of the best heroes, perhaps if not the best hero. And a variety of content creators have been putting out tier lists for this coming meta that we're moving out of Dromai and into this sort of in-between meta before we get part the Mistveil, and KO tops those lists. So my question to you is KO the best hero in this format? Why or why not, TCG Talk?
Ugh, that's hard. Currently, yes, it's the best hero in the format. I think some people agree with me, but some people may think I'm on copium. I think Prism will end up being the best hero in the format. I think the only thing holding back Prism is people haven't played the hero. I think that hero is insane. It has very few bad matchups, and even its bad matchups, it can just win by doing stupid stuff. And I think Prism eventually will be the best hero in the format. Currently, right now, yes, KO is just the best hero because, like, coming from an average player can just take the deck and win, right? It just has, there's not much thought. There is thought at a high level. We saw that at the Pro Tour, right? But at a normal, like, PQ RTN level, which is the bread and butter of most of the pro points and even Battle Hardened level, you could just play the deck, and if you deal 20 damage a turn 3 turns in a row, you're going to win probably against a person that doesn't understand value or doesn't know how to properly navigate that, or just doesn't have the deck to be able to combat that. So I think, because if you're evaluating from the lowest common denominator, which is like your average decent Proquest RTN level player, all the way up to the top, then yes, I think KO ends up being the best hero in the format currently.
Okay. What do you think, Breezy? What are your thoughts? Give me your hot take. TCG Talk just literally said that Prism could be the best hero in the format, and he got a point for that hot take.
See, the thing is, now you see here.
Kano,
Dude,
come on, just say Kano and let's get on with it.
Honestly, Kano could be pretty disgusting, because I don't know how that matchup goes, but
What, for
yeah, I don't
Kano
know how
between KO?
no, Kano and Prism.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We're gonna end the stream now.
So bad.
Negative points. No, dude, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that there's a use case to say that Victor is going to rise up incredibly, but in the same regard, so does Dorinthia. Because the reason why I don't think that KO is the best deck in the format right now is because it's too user friendly. It just is like, oh, I'm gonna pick this up and it's the deck that's gonna win, and it doesn't really force ingenuity, creativity. It doesn't force, like, the reason why I think it did so well into Dromai is because you don't really have to block efficiently. You just block with the popper. That's it. And then you literally draw 4 cards and say, oh, cool, I can deal 19 damage here. Yeah, no blocks. Like, if that's what determines the best deck in the format, I think it's the most powerful deck in the format. I don't think that it's the best deck as far as flexibility into the field. If the field starts to drastically favor certain heroes, I truly don't think that KO just automatically goes, oh, Dromai's gone, I'm the best now. I think that even heroes like Dorinthia, who punish you for not interacting, have legs because they can pivot into defending and making you just kind of run all your deck power cards out of the deck.
Sure.
And then just starts pinging you and getting counters on things. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't really have a full wholehearted explanation, but I just don't feel it in my heart that KO is just instantly the best deck because he's done second best in, like, because of Dromai. So I don't know.
I think that's a good way to put it. Not the best deck because he's been second best for so long. I don't mind.
Right,
I don't mind that argument. I will say that I have a bit of reticence trying to justify him as the best deck for that reason, and for the reason that there are at least 1 to 2 other heroes that I look at and I go, okay, that is terrifying to sit down and play against, and that just very well could be the best deck. Straight up, end of story. Nevertheless, if I had to put it down, I would probably have to say that he probably just edges out a few other heroes as the best deck in the format, just because he is so good at putting down damage. And to their credit, people that have been building and players that have been building KO have done a great job of building him slightly differently and to playing towards different strengths and different game plans. Like we're starting to see, because Dromai's moving out, players moving over to the Daniel Correa side of like list, where you put in a bunch of clashes and you just start clashing, and because you're revealing things off the top that are always buffed, then you're winning those clashes more often because you're able to just jam those out there. And like that's a nice way to just roll heroes out of the game by getting free value off of your blocks, you know. So there's some argument to be made about what the best deck in the format is, but I would probably, if I had to put money on it, I would probably say KO. The cool thing about this meta, and it's been this way for what, maybe 6 months now, 8 months now, maybe 6 months now, every hero's playable to some degree, which is really, really exciting. So let me follow this up. You both gave me your answer to KO being the best in the meta or being close to the top of the meta. What other heroes are in consideration for you personally? What other heroes do you point to and say that, if not KO, then that? Breezy, take us away.
I have a slight bias here, and it's not Viserai. But no, I think KO and Prism are arguably his kind of more kind of toss up matches into Victor, into Dorinthia, into Yuzuri, into anyone else that you'd put in A tier or B tier. Viserai just smokes them. At least the semi OTK and even the Turtle Burst list, just bar none, can't do much about 15 to 20 rune chance to your face plus 11 dominate. But that's not who I'm going to say. I'm going to say, for consistency wise, I'm going to say Yuzuri. I think Yuzuri kind of has the most flexible package in her kit and can go contract fatigue and can go stealth swap. If and sometimes you see that same deck operate all in one, right? But I know, like, even during the Calling Dallas, I tried a very early version of contract Yuzuri and I just hadn't like fine-tuned it. But then now coming back around to like this month, that list seems to be doing incredibly well, especially into heroes that are like KO that don't really want to interact as much because I can send 19 go again to the face. All I have to do is full block with one hand, hit you for 4. Oh, that's not threatening. All of a sudden I'm down to 12 cards in my deck and they're all blues. So I think for that reason alone, and she can go toe to toe with heroes like Dorinthia as far as her efficiency with blocking and reactions, etc. I think for that reason, I'm going to pick Yuzuri.
I like it. I think that's a solid pick. What do you think, TCG Talk?
I think the deck, my main answer is Prism, because technically Prism right now is not the best deck in the format, and I think she has the chance to be the best deck in the format. She has to stir up a couple of matchups. Very good in the Warrior. It's not free by any means, but it's favored, in my opinion, at a high level, because I've talked to a lot of talented players whose opinions I trust a lot, and they're like, oh, like I've talked to a couple of Kasai players and like, oh, I'm favored in a Prism. I'm like, how many good Prisms have you played? Right? Like, how many really good Prisms have you played? Because I don't think it's favored if you're playing against like On Hit Effect or like the Vespa or like the top Prism players.
Yeah, but how many good Prism players exist?
Currently, like right now at a top level,
6.
you don't know.
You just
named
name 2, and there's probably like one more that is unknown. You know what I mean? Like,
well, both the heroes I'm going to name are in the same category of why they're not at the top, is Leviah and Prism. Leviah is my other. If there is a meta where Leviah could be the best deck in the format, it's right now. She has a good Kano matchup because she has natural Spell Void 4. She has a good Prism matchup because she pops everything while applying pressure. You can tech and win the Warrior matchup, and she does well into fatigue if the pilot is good, right? Like, every time Mansant plays Leviah, he puts on a freaking show because he knows the hero, right? But it's just think a lot of people don't play the hero at that level, or very few people play the hero at that level. So my main answer still is Prism. All it has to do is more talented players get on that hero and show that hero is probably the best deck in the format. I think it's literally the only reason it's not the best deck in the format is because a lot of people aren't on it. But once people start to get on it and tune it, it's going to be the best deck. And then my backup is Leviah. I think if there's ever a meta where Leviah has a chance to be the best deck, it's right now. But you just have to have the pilots in order to do it, who are willing to lose 100 games to learn the deck. And sadly, in Flesh and Blood, where we hop to what we perceive as the best deck naturally most of the time, and we don't have as many specialists, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that is very true, that it doesn't always happen when it's very easy to just go to the next one and try to run that one in. Novocaine says that there are dozens of good Prism. Dozens.
Dozens of them.
That's good. They're all going to show up at the Nationals this year too. The US
even
Nationals.
like a little, it's a one-off like example, but like I played a couple Prisms like in RTN season and beat most of them, actually all of them on Katsu. My friend Jordan, who's been Prism since the 2.0 came out, I can't even hope to beat him on Katsu unless I absolutely high roll the crap out of him and he draws like 4 non-blocks. But he beats me 8 out of 10 times because it's just the difference in between a good Prism and not even a bad Prism, just an average Prism is so night and day different. It's the same as Jermai. The difference between a good, okay Jermai and a great Jermai is like night and day. And I think Prism's like on the way to doing that personally.
Well, let me say this. You both mentioned several heroes that I had sort of floating around in my head. I think Azuri is incredibly well positioned for very specific matchups and for very specific heroes that I think are very good in the format. Prism is gaining popularity like crazy and showing out because of it. So yeah, those good Prisms are starting to rear their heads, as it were. As you can see, if you look at the Proquest week 1 wins, she was like the 4th most winning hero on that list. But a hero that wasn't talked about is what we're going to talk about right now. And that's the rise of Aelia, because neither of you said Aelia, and I am personally shocked by that, and so I'm -1ing you both. Because Aelia
is not good. She's just not good, dude.
Aelia, to both of you, is far better than both of you gave her credit for. And it's been proven multiple times by the same person, and then it's been followed up by people at the Proquest level in week 1, and I think it's about to get shown up and shown out like crazy this week. I think Aelia is probably arguably the other best deck in the format if certain heroes stay where they are. Aelia just dumpsters almost everyone. That any hero that does not provide interaction with her, does not force her into interacting, she is a more terrifying Katsu, because her on hits basically make you not play the game. And so my question to both of you is, why in the world are neither of you... No, I'm just kidding. No, it's not mentioning that. What are your thoughts on the rise of Aelia? Do you feel as though she is one of the best decks in the format? Do you feel like this is more of a flash in the pan that is just being shown up by one of the best players in the game of Flesh and Blood as Brody Spurlock? What do you think, Breezy?
I don't know. I think it's like there was that moment, right, where Aelia was nothing, could do nothing to anybody, and then seemingly overnight became this insane powerhouse with all these buffs and, you know, on hits from outsiders, and just got busted. And I think that like desensitized us a little bit to her. Like we know, when you sit across Aelia, she's going to do 2 things: 14 dominate and then not block. And that's not that hard to figure out. So it's like, yeah, it goes, and personally for me, it's right in line with KO. You're not going to interact as much unless you absolutely have to, and you're at like really low threshold. Because why would you, when your 4 cards could block for 8 or 9? When if you don't block with them, you can deal like 16 dominate, 2 blood rots on hit, ponder, and you get an inertia. It's like, well, yeah, of course I'm not going to interact with you. So we all know that. But does that make her the best? Probably. Yeah. But I play Viserai, and she doesn't like that hero. So I don't have a problem with her.
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that argument.
Yeah.
I am done speaking.
Yeah,
Just like lean forward.
I don't have problem with Aelia, therefore not a big threat to me. But I understand from the perspective of the rest of the field, it can be very scary to stare down. You know, I think this is another hero where like there are probably 12 really good Aelia players in the world, and the rest are just like trying to clunk it all together.
I don't know. I may have some words about that. But let's hear from
tricky, dude.
Dylan.
She's a tricky hero to play, dude.
Tell us what your thoughts are on Aelia in her most recent build, because I think that is the sticking point. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Cheerios list definitely is more offensive, and it has more consistency because stuff like taking can get you out of a bind. It has more ability to do varying lines and deal with things and be more flexible. There's a couple things about Aelia. My overarching statement is Aelia is always going to be a flash in the pan deck and will never be a long-standing meta deck. It just won't, because of two things. One, it's so easy to tech into Aelia most of the time. I can just stick on movables, reinforce lines, sync fate in my sideboard and my main board, and guess what? Good luck. Like, unless you're on Dreadbore, Sandscour, or Greatbow, I'm just going to deck you out because Ranger doesn't have a weapon. It's just how it is. Unless you draw the absolute god turns, which Aelia can do. She can just hit the win button, but you're not going to do that over a 7-round calling. Like, a lot of the top decks right now can naturally side in defensive pieces without hurting their deck. Warrior can naturally side in on movables and like sinks fates and other stuff like that, and even take it on the chins to help combat Aelia. Victor and Bravo can literally just side in staunch and unmovables. And then, you know, Kano can even do the sync fate stack plan and just burn her down. Like, and then other stuff. Anyway, there's just a lot of ways to tech into her. I actually think if Aelia wants to continue to be a top deck, I never thought I'd ever say this because I still don't think the list is as good as the normal DD list, but I think it's going to have to be like a Sandscour, Greatbow, Dreadbore hybrid. I think that list actually has more legs now, even though I don't inherently like that list. But I guess the short answer is I think Aelia is just very easily techable. And also there's this card called Warmonger's Diplomacy, which literally almost every top deck in the format right now can run without even blinking. And that card just absolutely destroys her. And again, you might get lucky to Proquest, but into a field that is 100% expecting her, where she's the top deck in the format, she's just very easily techable. So I think it's going to be a struggle for her to be good over the course of like a 3-4 month period. That's just my opinion. And that's someone who played her. I played her last RTN season. I've played her in several ProQuests. It's like, I love the hero. I just don't see the hero being good long term. I think once people are finally like, okay, this is like, there's certain decks you go, last thing I'll say is there's certain decks you go into and you're like, okay, there's decks I can try to dodge, but there's certain decks where it's like, I have to tech into this deck to win my top 8 games. Right now, if you do not have a plan for Warrior, if you don't have a plan for Kano, you're not going to win your top 8 games. If Aelia ever gets to the point where it's like every player is saying, okay, I'm going to see an Aelia in top 8, so I have to put tech in my deck for it, that's where she becomes less good because she's very easily techable, in my opinion. That's just me.
So let me ask you this, because Aelia put up results over the past 2-3 weeks, basically since Pro Tour ended. She's been putting up results consistently at high levels, in top 8s, so on and so forth, picking up battle hardens, picking up calling wins. At what point do we look at, and I'll go even further, that was in the meta that Dromai, a natural predator to Rangers everywhere, was very highly represented. Now she is no longer here in Dromai, and you take away one of Azalea's lowest matchups. Are we thinking that Aelia still takes a step back because she's too fragile or too easily techable? Or does the loss of that and the shift of the meta somehow push her down, or does she stay high? I want to know a little bit more, because to me, she looks like she is being set up quite well in a very heavy KO meta, in a meta that doesn't see fatigue as a viable strategy currently. She seems quite well set up to go toe-to-toe, regardless of whether, particularly with this list, regardless of whether or not you decided to play unmovables in your list, which is objectively pretty bad right now. TCG Talk, expound upon that.
I just think, I think sideboard slots open up a lot right now and people have a lot more freedom, right? Prism is not quite in the representation spot where you have to actually, like, as a Uziri player, you can reasonably right now going into PQ week 2 say, I'm not even going to tech for Prism because I might see one and it doesn't matter, right? She's not quite at the representation level where you have to dedicate sideboard slots to her. So sideboard slots opened up for a lot of heroes, and a lot of heroes can do a lot of different things with that. Like Warrior can put in more defense reactions and more defensive pieces. Assassin can put in unmovables if they want to. They can put in reinforced lines. They can put Warmonger's Diplomacy in their blue slot now. Victor can put even Warmongers in their slot if they want to. If Aelia got bad enough, maybe take out a Terra Sunder or two. They can put pummels in the deck. They can put, be more on like a CNC pummel plan. I just think there's a lot a lot of sideboard slots opened up when Dromai left because Prism's not quite there to make you respect her enough to take up those sideboard slots. And so because of that, I just think it's a lot easier to. I just think she's an easily techable hero. I really do. Now I'm not saying Azaleas can't change their decks and like maybe put Dreadbore back in the list like it was in the Oldham time frame with New Horizon and like mess with things around, but like even as a assassin, if I put Sinks, Fates, and Sigils in my list, and I just try to disrupt you as much as I can with Warmongers, like it's gonna be hard to do that over a 7-round tournament. And I think the reason she's done good, one, she had very talented players like Brody and piloting her, but if you look at the one she's won at the last 2 weeks, yeah, that was a very like unknown time. Jeremiah was about to go out, people were trying new things. You have a bunch of different stuff, and I normally am not the person that says like, battle hardens don't count. I hate when people say that, but like 1 or 2 events to me, like I want to see her do good over like a 2-3 month period, right? That's where I would put her as a top deck. But that's just me.
Gotcha. Parker, what are your thoughts? Is she poised to do well this ProQuest season, or is she poised to take a step back?
I think she's going to continue to do well. And I think this is like a byproduct of when the meta is so wide open, right? Like I want my hero to do well, and so I'm going to play my hero. And if this was something that we were kind of facing down more familiar, where it's like, oh, these two have been like, I guess when I say it's open meta, it's a specialist meta. I should specify that. If you're really good at Vincent, you want to take Vincent. Does she fare well into Aelia? I don't know. I haven't played Vincent in a long time. Maybe you think you are, but does that mean she as a whole is? So I think because we have this dichotomy of like these heroes are naturally pretty good, and then you also have the other side of the coin where people are like, Dromai's gone, I get to play pretty much anything I want. And it's like, well, you still got to be careful for these heroes. You still have to watch out for Aelia. So how many of those wins are free wins, right? How many of those living legend points are just really like, oh, my top 8 was like my best matchup because the rest of the field got cleared out. Gem was in my favor. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or whatever happens, but you just got to be careful. To Dylan's point, if you tech well, you have a lot more sideboard slots. I've seen and personally done lots of negating of Azalea's dumping of hands and have them not deal a single point of damage just due to having those patient play patterns and saying, I'm going to queue up this D-React. I know Aelia, I know what she's going to do. I'll keep this, tunic up so that I can pay for this on my turn. So it just takes strategy. You really just have to place wisely into a hero like this that you can already kind of smell what's happening, what's going to happen, right? So, and then cards like CNC exist. So, you can just drop one of those down and just be like, hey, now you have to play the game with me. So, yeah. I don't. And also, I think I'm going to use the word that Dylan always says. This isn't for points, but I think that going back to the Prism thing, could also be slightly relevant with Aelia because she keeps ebb and flowing into the meta and kind of taking a back seat a little bit, doing this thing where a lot of people just maybe aren't familiar with how to play into the hero. They're just not used to the matchup. And I think that's where Prism got a lot of her success in PQ week 1 is just, I didn't anticipate this. I wasn't testing into this. I was preparing for tons of Dromais and Victors and KOs. This one Prism is doing weird things that I'm just not familiar with. Aelia is going to start teching and moving weird cards around and doing weird things that people aren't prepared for, and being like, well, let me read that. Oh, whoa, weird. This is weird. So I think there's some favor into those heroes in that regard too.
Well, we shall see because we are on the eve of ProQuest week number 2 when everything sort of changes now that Dromai is gone. So will KO be the top dog on this weekend, or will some of these heroes that we've talked about, the Azuris of the world, maybe the Azaleas of the world, the Prisms, start to make their push towards the S tier status? That's definitely an interesting thing to follow and something maybe we'll check back in with next week. If we hey, if you want this to be a weekly thing, leave a comment down below or say it in chat that you want us to do these weekly, and we can definitely accommodate that. But moving on to our next topic, and that it kind of revolves around some of the cards that we saw spoiled over last weekend. And we're going to kind of break these down pretty interestingly. We're going to look at both of these. These are both some visit cards, and they are both specializations for heroes that came out in heavy hitters. And they're for two heroes that perhaps couldn't be more separated, because one of them is pretty well liked as far as a meta contention is concerned, and that's Victor. And the other one, quite frankly, probably doesn't exist at all in the meta. And we'll talk about Olympia second. But first things first, if you missed these spoiler cards, they were spoiled at the SCG event last weekend. Visit Goldmane Estate costs 1. It's a blue. It pitches for 3 and it blocks for 3. It's a Victor specialization. It says create a gold token. You just get gold on demand. Pay 1, create a gold token. Floating 2 off the back, which, by the way, you can technically use to crack a gold token if you want to. But then if you create 3 or if you control, I should say, 3 or more gold tokens, create that many might tokens. And, oh, by the way, go again, which is pretty solid. Queenie Equinox says we need to stream these annually. It would be more special. What an idea. What an
like a
idea.
12-hour stream. We'd have so much to talk about.
Us three with our schedules trying to make sure we do it annually. That would it wouldn't happen.
That's one of the ideas of all time. Just don't stop streaming. I like that as well. Okay, so first question on Visit Goldmane Estate. Is this card good? Why or why not Breezy?
Dude, it's a blue pitch, 3 block, 1 cost, go again, Guardian. Not just Guardian, Victor specialization. Therefore, it sucks.
There's our show, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. The screen is still broken. Congratulations, we're all done. There you go. No, just kidding. We'll continue. Okay, go ahead. Yes, it sucks, he says.
This card is insane, dude. I don't know why we felt the need, and by we, I mean LSS. I think Joshua Scott is in chat, or maybe that was
He did
earlier,
say,
but
yay, Aelia.
yeah.
Shout out Josh Scott. Man is a gift giver extraordinaire. Deals that chocolate. Love that Whitaker's.
I've yet to receive some chocolate, so maybe we can do something. Josh, just DM me. Anyway, so maybe you can ask the devs, or maybe you can just send an email to someone and say, why did Victor need it? Was he hurting? Was he really struggling for a card that costs 1? I've seen plenty of Victors. I think it's in the sideboard where they're running Tunic as an option. So this could just be a free, go again, non-attack, create the gold. I've even seen or heard talk in certain groups of, hey, what if Victor just ran Crown and just started the game with a gold? Then they only have to create 1 more gold to do the thing. I mean, sure, it's just a might token, which isn't that crazy, right? Talk to KO
It's 3 might
about
tokens.
might tokens. Oh, well, create that many might tokens. Sure. Yes. 3 might tokens. Got it. So his hammer can hit for 7 now. No. I don't know, man. It just the fact that this synergizes with his hero ability, I think, is really, really cool. But I hope we get more stuff that says like the balance of justice that kind of talks about, hey, if they've drawn cards, you get to do this cool thing too. Because Victor drawing cards anytime he creates a gold and just having a free gold grabber is insane. What they do with that gold, I guess they can become the Golden Sun if they really wanted to late game. But other than that, it's just this, card grabber, go again enabler, kind of blocking shenanigans. I don't know. The card sucks, but the card's awesome, and I hate it. So there's that.
Yeah, Josh Scott, still in chat, says, don't forget, Aura Magus counts as a gold for the second effect.
Yeah,
So
Crown
gold,
Aegis
crown,
do this.
and this effect will generate
Exactly.
3 might. And then every time you play it, as long as you're not popping gold, it will generate that many more might, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
so
we
this
might
could
even
be-
start to see some what's it called? The +3 buff that gives you a gold you can wager. There's all kinds of gold wagering mechanics in his kit, so he could just really really abuse this card.
So you're
and
saying
get
3
those
stars
3
out of 5. 3 stars out of 5. Is that right?
I would give it 4 for creativity, but then it gets a point taken down because I hate Victor. So
Well,
3
that's
out of
about
5.
right. That's about right.
Yeah.
What do you think, TCG Talk? What are your thoughts on this card?
Yeah, I saw some people saying this card's bad. I have no clue where you're getting that from. Like on the Tunic build, this replaces itself. And gives you currency to do other things like Golden Sun and draw extra cards and have that ability when you miss a clash. Like so many times talking to victors, like when they lose close games, like they lose their clashes typically that they weren't expecting to lose or something like that. And that really swings the game a lot. And this being able to make gold, so when you do lose those trounces, clashes or something, you're able to pop it without popping your shield. And then it has the added bonus of, yes, being able to get +3 to an attack just for free pretty much is pretty nuts. Like and it's a blue block 3. And I understand the miss ratio. Like I get that. Most victors are on 15 to 21 misses right now. But if you want to run the list, it's starting to gain popularity from the PT calling, where they're running more to a defensive package like Sinks Fates and everything else like that. Like they have more misses in the deck. This card helps make up for that, right? So yeah, this card's insane. It's automatic include in a victor. At worst, it's a card that replaces itself and nets you a gold for later for when you need it. And at best, it's a 1 for 3 that replaces itself and gives you +3 buff. Like, and it's a blue block 3. Again, crying with Visit the Floating Dojo, not blocking as an instant. But anyway, this card's cracked. I would give this card like an S-, A+.
Dude, you got to give it negative points for it being a victor specialization, though.
That's why you said A+. Yeah, I guess that's the A+.
What's the value on this card? Can we do some math real quick? What's this card's value?
That's the interesting thing, because there's a lot of implied value depending on when you're using it, based on how many gold you have on board already, right?
Right. Let's say you get the 3, then you got the card draw. Oh, dude, yeah. This is like weird crown of seeds on a stick almost.
On Tunic, yes. And like I do understand the only negative I've heard that I can get is, let's say you have 2 blues with this and you play this, you gain a gold, which draws you a card. Victor sometimes just wants to swing the hammer and doesn't want to arsenal like a blue or a trounce, or so you could IP yourself. It's the same thing that Uzir used to have with like Codex, right? Where you draw into like a card you don't want to arsenal, like a shakedown. And so you're like, well, as I IP myself. So there could be situations. This card I would not play this in a Tectonic build, but in a Tunic build, which honestly I think is the more popular build right now, from what I've seen at least, I would play this card. So you know what? Run a 3 of, run this at a 2 of or a 1 of, just to get a goal when you absolutely need it, like arsenal it and wait. You know what I mean?
It's a real possibility as well. I think that is one of those moments, and one of those hinge points. The idea of running more 2 ofs or 1 ofs is perhaps one of those spaces where Flesh and Blood can start to innovate or start to kind of head towards with deck lists, and more people becoming more specialists and learning more matchups, going, okay, this is a card that's really good, but if I see it in like, if I see 2 in a hand, it's really bad. So let's go down to 2, or let's go down to 1. I think that's a space that we can maybe move into as a community, which I'm very excited for, because my favorite lists are the ones that have the 2 ofs and the 1 ofs and like these different ratios. And you look at it and you're like, this, you can see, is a list that someone has put a freaking ton of time into. Those are the hype ones. I always love those. Okay, so that is Visit Goldmane Estate. Now let's talk about Visit the Golden Anvil. Tell me what you think about this card. It is a blue block 3, costs you 0 Olympia specialization. It's an action that does not have go again. It says, as an additional cost to play this, destroy X gold you control. If you didn't know, Olympia, by the way, he is a little underrepresented right now. He can create gold fairly regularly, we'll put it that way. He has to wager to do so, but he can wager at instant speed with his hat, which is pretty cool. You can break his helm and wager at instant speed, and then you can pay 3 gold or X gold in this case and equip X equipment or weapons from your inventory, meaning that you can crack at instant speed, or reaction speed, I should say, your hat. And then after you do so, you could play this card and get that same hat back. Well, not the same hat, but a hat from your inventory back to replace it. It makes him a very unique hero. I described this to a couple of other people as I was sitting down to last week's Proquest. To me, this card makes him feel like his own version of Taylor. And Taylor, if you don't know, is the shapeshifter promo hero that you get if you win a cosplay contest, who can equip equipment from her sideboard at any point, or from her inventory. He feels like a variation of that, and he can do some really interesting things with this. But My question about this card, do you think it's good, and do you think it pushes him enough to be playable in the meta? TCG Talk, take us away.
Yeah, so there you see this card, and it's similar to like when I saw Ancestral Harmony, where you start thinking of the ultimate Christmas like crazy stuff, right? That's probably never ever going to happen. Like having 3 grains of blood spill in your list and just keep bringing them in, like, and all this other crazy stuff. But the from a more rational perspective, like, this card is very good. It does some really cool things. I'm thinking of the number one inclusion in my opinion is Parry Blade. It actually makes Parry Blade a very playable weapon in a hatchet build if you're not on Decimator, because you can start with Parry Blade, block 2 on a key block like quarter of the way through the game, and then bring in your second hatchet or whatever, because Parry Blade breaks with Blade Break. So it is, but you don't lose the value of at least attacking with Parry Blade, and so on and so forth. So that's really nice. Yes, it does allow you to bring in tempered equipment that broke, so you can bring in another grains of blood spill.
Yes.
Or you could even like you could get really creative with it. I don't know how useful this would be, but maybe you start with grains of blood spill in a long matchup to get the block value, and then you bring in Tunic. I don't know if you'd ever do that. You know what I mean? So like you could bring in like some different stuff that might be useful. But yeah, at its core, it's giving gold a payoff, which is what Olympia needs, because Olympia is not really a bad deck. It's just not as good as Kasai or Dory, right? In my opinion, I don't think it's a bad deck. I mean, there was that one Olympia list that won an RTN that people were super psyched about. But yeah, it gives Olympia more unique stuff, and I'm down for having heroes have more just as much thematics as they do power. And this gives Olympia some thematics, and it's something that I think the game's not necessarily missing, but I would like to see more of, where we get like decently good cards that give heroes more identity, because I think we've started to lose that slightly. So this helps give a hero an identity more similar to like Taylor or something like that. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I see chat popping off a little bit talking about different things that you can do, and some people saying bring 3 Balance of Justice. We've got Callier saying just play 3 Galea for more instant wagers, and I think that is the number one thing people are going to be doing. But the cool thing is, if you're getting instant wagers and you're creating the gold, then in doing so, when you create that gold, you're more likely than not creating multiples, and it means that you can buy back multiple equipment. So why not also include something like a grains? But Breezy, tell us what you think about this card. Does it push him enough? Does it even seem ridiculously good for you?
I mean, I think in contrast, right? Because we saw both of these, the Golden Anvil and Gold Main Estate at the same time, right? So I think if it was just this was shown by itself, I think people would be a little bit more freaked out about it. But when you have its next door neighbor, Gold Main Estate, just giving you the free gold, whereas this one's telling you make it and then figure out. Because you point out, you can't play this if you don't already have the gold. It says as an additional cost to play this. So you can't just play this by itself naked. You have to destroy X gold, right? Or I guess you could choose X is 0, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's a thing.
Yeah,
okay.
you could play it out there.
Why would you want to do that? So
No,
you
there's
got to
no
find your gold. You got to get your gold. I know you mentioned Olympia can make his gold fairly decently if he succeeds a wager. But aside from that, I mean, I think people's expectations to just clog their sideboard with a bunch of equipment, I think makes him less good. If you decide, I'm gonna bring 2 additional helmets and maybe 2 more Parry Blades, it's like, okay, well, there's your sideboard. You've maybe got some Sink Belows, maybe something else in there. So I think that you got to be very careful when you're looking at this and saying, oh, I'll just destroy my equipment and then go get it back, because then what if your opponent just denies you the gold, and now you've got all this sideboard tech that's just meaningless, not really doing as much as you'd hope for. So I think it's definitely cautionary, but I think that's why I like this card, because it's not just make the thing, draw the card, succeed at everything your hero wants to do. It's telling you, hey, man, you will be rewarded if you do the things that your hero wants you to do. Yeah. And I think that's why I really enjoy this card. Again, it's blocks for 3, it's blue pitch, it's fantastic. I had a thought too, equip X. Oh, go ahead.
There's a level of risk that is put into this design, not from a design perspective, but from a play perspective. Like, it's a risky card to go out there and play in your deck because of the fact that someone could deny you gold for an extended period of time when you need to use your, this effect to go and get your equipment back. or when you could really benefit from it. And I think that is
Mhm.
what I'm most excited about. It gives him a very unique identity, and it is not a card that just like shoehorns in or shoves down the throat his like identity. You know, I like that about it, and that's what has me kind of excited for it. What were you gonna say?
See,
Yeah.
I was just
All
gonna
right.
say, see, now if we the what I am actually most excited about with this card is that it just opens up like future equipment that could reward you for maybe even tutoring this card. Like when this destroys, when this piece of equipment destroys, draw or go get a hero specialization from your deck, and then you're like, oh cool, I'll just use this last piece of temper, break this chess piece, go dig into my deck for a golden anvil.
Sure.
At least on my turn, I'll go get it. Or maybe you're just, I think that there's some flexibility, some future trials that this card could open up for a hero as slightly underwhelming as Olympia is right now.
TCG Talk, what were you gonna say?
I was saying two things. Is I think because on face, in order for this card to be above rate, you have to get like two things with it, right? Because it's a blue block 3, so you essentially need to get over 3 value with it. So if I just go get another prized Galea, but I don't use that second one I go get, then I literally just blocked the same value as I would have if I would just blocked with the blue card, right? It doesn't change anything. So you have to use the abilities of what you go get to make it worthwhile. I actually do think this would be decent in decimator builds. Like you could just use all the temper equipment and then go get more temper equipment, and you just keep using reoccurring block. But yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to say is this card on face, like, yes, it's very good, but you actually have to be able to use the equipment you're going to get. But similar to Parker said, this opens up things where if they do more Apex Bonebreaker type stuff, but for Warrior, where like you're getting actually a good reward for blocking with your equipment, then this card becomes really crazy. Like if they even had an arm piece that was temper 2 that said when you block with this, create a courage token, right, or something like that, it to get +1 value, then you would start to say, okay, this card's really good because you're getting the +3 block value or +2 block value before it breaks, and you're getting the courage, right? So you might end up getting a little bit more for it. So excited to see how this hero is now built out because they said more support's coming. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see 2 Olympia specializations in the expansion slots. Probably won't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're really trying to just give the hero the support it deserves now type thing. So
No, Josh, no. Oh, Josh. Okay. I was waiting for TCG Talk to finish his statement because I was going to say there were secret points attached to this topic. If either of you had mentioned Shana at all, because that was the final question I was going to ask you. And the final question was this, and Josh got there right there. Dang it, Josh, you buried I guess I should have just led with it. Whatever. Nevertheless, these are both Shana cards because Shana can play every specialization. So the real question, as Shana actually makes a bit of a surge in Blitz right now, is how does she fare now that she has access to multiple equipment from inventory? Oh, and also create a gold go again? Does this
I've never played Shana. If I ever bought the card, I would play it. It'd be fun.
It's good. She's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think from the 2, I think she really loves Golden Anvil because right now she can only play Talishar the Lost Prince. And that's kind of your bye.
I turned him off. I turned the wrong channel off. He's gone.
Yeah, so for sure, I think the Golden Anvil is a no-brainer. But as someone pointed out, Quinny, this does take up your action point too. So
it does, yeah.
Maybe Mage Master Boots, Golden Anvil. You can do some funny shenanigans. Lead the charge. I mean, you can make it work. You can make it work if you really wanted to go again.
I think you don't even care. I think you just block with 3 cards and play this. It's like playing Warmonger's Diplomacy.
Yeah.
You just play this down,
Yeah.
get your stuff back, and now you have 6 block available if you're playing as someone who popped all their equipment. But this actually does insane stuff. I was thinking about this card on the drive home, and I was thinking about Shana on the drive home today because I was actually thinking about Blitz. And if you didn't watch it, you should go check out Dice Commando's video on Blitz today. I'm so happy that he put it out because he finally said what I've been thinking, and he finally said that Emperor is S tier. Yes. And Shana is quite close, in my opinion. Quite close. I messed around with her a little bit. I talked in our group chat about Shana maybe a month ago. And these cards, do some crazy stuff for Shiana, not the least of which getting her another copy of Talishar if she wants it, which I think is super cool. Or the flail. She just goes gets flail after Talishar swings. So I think this actually has some really great ramifications and consequences for Shiana and Blitz. Okay, the real final question though for this topic is this. We've seen an Olympia specialization and a Victor specialization. What other hero most needs a specialization immediately as soon as possible? TCG Talk.
Oh, you put me on the spot with this. We didn't have
Yes.
this one. Oh, this isn't bait either. I'm being dead serious. Kano. Kano needs to be put in a different direction to make the hero perceive differently and to be able to expand the hero in a different way. That's the first one that's popped in my head. There's other stuff that I'm not going to say on this podcast. We can do it later about maybe the future design of Kano and Wizard as a whole. But if you want to slowly put Kano and put Wizard in a place where it's not stemmed by one card that must not be named, I think Kano deserves another specialization because I can't think of another hero that I would want to have a spec more than Kano or Riptide. Give Riptide a playable. I'm sorry, Joshua.
Dude, he's gotten so many specs. What do you mean?
Reel in is not it. I love Reel in the depth, but it's not it. That's a selfish pick. But if I was being honest, I'd say Kano. I want to see Kano go in a different way than
that is such a beautiful answer. And I joked by giving you up to 50 points. But I'm very tempted to just leave it and see if Breezy can also somehow earn that many points. Breezy, what is your answer?
We weren't prepped for this question, by the way, chat. So that was the first thing that popped in my head.
This super hot goth babe right here.
All right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We gotta go. We gotta go up. We've hit the point total section of the stream where things get crazy.
Vincent has some of the best like mechanic as far as like so far out of the box, right? It's not as simple as what Chain used to be able to do. You have to meet these certain conditions. You've got to jump through these loopholes. But if you get one toe on the back foot, it just crumbles beneath you. And this was kind of what we saw with Levia and how Levia became a demi hero, where she was able to say, "Oh, okay, I'm on the back foot, but at least now I'm rewarded in a triumphant comeback ability in order to kind of swing my final, hurrah and maybe close this game out." And I think Vincent doesn't need to wait until she's a 2-year-old hero in order to get that. There's a ton of diehard hero players of the hero, and I would say Viserai, but he's just gotten just garbage specializations as far as playability goes right now. But so give it to Vincent. Give it to the next best Runeblade because there's only one other one. Give it to Vincent.
I think that's a solid answer as well. I think Kano and hitting it exactly on the head, exactly the way that I've explained it multiple times, is just such a great answer, though. Because to me, I think Kano is one of my favorite heroes, and he's a hero that I want to actively play a lot. But the fact that you only build the deck to play around that combo makes it feel far more restrictive. And to their credit, there are a lot of players that are, changing the way that he goes about that combo. You can lean more into zero costs. You can kind of push more towards I know there's value builds with defense reactions being able to play. Obviously, you can just, stack Kano, which is pretty popular right now. And in a meta that's pretty mid-range, can perform quite well as long as you know how to play stack Kano and you can pitch stack very well. So there are ways to do it, but the end goal usually just means you executing that combo. And I really loved Blitz Kano because he didn't rely on that. He relied on a lot of creativity and a lot of weird flexible lines with cards that were generally underrated until you put the combo together, and that's what made you feel like a wizard. Whereas sometimes I feel like when you play the wildfire combo out, you're just kind of just playing like a computer game. It feels fundamentally different than when you could play him in blitz. So I hope one day that we get a Kano that feels a little bit different. Maybe Brainstorm Kano is the truth. I played that about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to be streaming that pretty soon.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Brainstorm.
I was gonna say maybe they should have just made Brainstorm his specialization and said, figure it out, do something funny.
I gave you 3 more points because you were going to say Brainstorm Kano, and that deck is sweet. That deck
I've been
really
blown out 40 to 0. Like
Yeah, that
gained
deck
life.
lets me go
Dude
get a
gained
sandwich and like go to the bathroom and
No,
polish shower.
See,
while
here's
they're
the
doing
thing. If you're talking about like truly uninteractive combos, Brainstorm is
You're
the
just like-
epitome of that. And you know
I
what? I'm
legitimately
okay
go to
with
the
it because the
grocery store
deck
and back.
sucks. The deck sucks, and it's
The
kind
deck
of
sucks.
okay. But that's
if
what's
you do
great
the thing,
about
it's like,
it.
yeah.
Oh man, I played a stack version of it. It works, but it's not. It works when it works, and then you just spend like a 45-minute game dying, and then you lose when it doesn't work. And so it's like I don't know if I ever want to do that to myself in a tournament setting, but maybe at an armory. Maybe I'll dust that off for an armory. Nevertheless, there's a couple people that said, like Pyronic EX says, I think Kano does need something to go in a different direction, but a spec for him won't help any future wizards. I don't know if they'll need to. Look at how Icelander didn't even sniff at Wildfire because she was fundamentally different in how she went about her business. And I think the next time we get a wizard, I have a feeling they're not going to play Wildfire either. Now they could because it's a really good card, but there's a very good chance that that hero is so unique that they won't even look that direction because they're going to be doing something else as a wizard. And all I hope is that they just lean into the wizardy aspect of said wizard.
Wizard's mechanic, like I said before, how like Assassin Stealth, Ninja's combo, Wizard is play on your turn. Like not all the time, but that's their mechanic. So all you have to do is build something around that. And that is so wild. It can be easily so wildly different. Like that's honestly one of the easier classes to like, okay, let's sit down. How do we want this wizard or this to play on their turn type thing? So
100%. Okay, so we approach our final topic and the points have ballooned. This is the most points we've ever given on an episode of Give and Take. Can you believe it? It's shocking. And to round it out, we're just going to have one final lightning round style question. But before, look at these chat comments popping up on screen. Wildfire does very, very little without Kano's ability. Yep, that's 100% true. And then you say that, but Alexander Vore played Aether Wildfire in his Icelander deck. Yes, he did. And it was immediately dropped after that. He definitely did. And it did not make it past that point. In fact, I will say this. I actually tried multiple times putting a deck together with Wildfire because I desperately wanted her to not be Bullander. And so I definitely tried that. But yeah, it's one of those interesting things where you can run the card and it's a good card. Like it functions. It's a 2-for-4. And if you play it on your opponent's turn, sometimes it gives you the value. If you Stormstriders it and then play like a blue spell from Arsenal. But more than just that, it never really did anything that you couldn't just do a little bit better for Icelander. So I think that'll be the way going forward. But let's get to our last topic. It's all about Part the Mistveil. And Part the Mistveil, we've been getting spoiler after spoiler. We just talked about 2 of the spoilers. They're specialization cards. But we've been getting a lot of these spoilers. These are the alternate art versions of these legendary cards, these mystic instants that you can flip over and transcend to gain 3 chi. And you guys wanted this question, so I'm gonna fire it out there. I'm sorry, I just read chat and I panicked for a moment because Breezy typed in very high probability, but there's a little heart on my screen that's in the way, and so I thought he was just saying he's very high probably, and that is not what you meant. That is not what you were insinuating,
man?
But we don't know.
Nobody knows. Probably.
Totally distracted by that 100%. Nevertheless, let's get to the question, and this is the lightning round question, so it's just one question. What do you think about these arts? And then after you kind of have described your opinion on these arts, do you think that this is going to be the most beautiful set in Flesh and Blood history, or is there another set that is S tier as far as art? Tell me your thoughts, starting with Breezy.
Man, if only like a month and a half ago, someone on this show/podcast was like, I really hope they call in local Japanese artists to do artwork for this set. That would be a super cool, like, prophetic thing if someone had said that. But anyway,
The world
yeah,
may
no,
never know because no one ever uploaded the audio versions to your podcast service near you. Jeez.
That's right. Yeah, if only.
Someone needs to do that.
It's dude, this is some of the most incredible artwork, and I think that, I mean, that's, you don't have to twist anyone's arm to say that. I think that everyone is going to tie certain favorites to nostalgia, maybe, or even their own class. Like,
Yes.
I know that I love Runeblade because of the purples and the blues and like the swirlings. I can admire the Mistveil artwork, but for me personally, it's not my favorite pieces of art that there are. I think that there are some of the heralds that look more beautiful than some of the ones that are in part the Mistveil. So I think it kind of goes back and forth as a whole, to be determined because we haven't seen them all. But I know that they're doing what they're doing on purpose by showing us some of the flashiest, most colorful, like kind of unique. I mean, look at Stir the Pot with the big cat and the skeleton and the chicken. Like, we've never seen anything like this in the game. So it's very jarring and very like, what the heck is going on? And then again, you look at, oh, these are Japanese renowned artists that they're including in the game. That this is all stirring the pot, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. So I think it's doing a lot for what it needs to, but is it the best? In my opinion, no.
Ooh,
Because-
spicy.
Because these are illusionist cards and assassin cards and ninja cards, and that's just not what I resonate with. And I think
Sure.
that's okay. Do I want to collect them? Kinda. If I pull them, I probably won't like plaque them and put them on a shelf.
Sure.
I'd rather them go to someone who like adores them, admires them. So, yeah, that's my hot take or
There you
cold take,
go.
however you want to digest it.
All right, TCG Talk. Finish us out. Is this the best art set? And what other set is S tier as far as art is concerned?
Yeah, it's so hard because art's so subjective, right? That's the fun part of this topic. But
Mhm.
I think it's the best. Like, and yes, I'm an assassin ninja player, so obviously, but like these mystic cards, Flesh and Blood is never, and this is no disrespect to any artist that's ever made a card for the game. Art is nowhere near what these cards are in terms of detail, in terms of abstractness. I don't even know the correct word. How abstract, how differentiating they are, the color palette, like. It is, everything has been pushed up to a brand new level as in terms of just like intricacy and like uniqueness and creativity. Like you see it in TCGs all the time, right? Some TCGs are screen printed because it's from a game or an IP, right? Some TCGs are very like standard, like even Welcome to Wraith, which everybody loves. Like the art in that set is pretty standard. I don't mean in a negative way. It just is. It's what you expect. It looks realistic. Like this is the first set I think where they have just went in such a left field. Like I don't know what they told the artist. I don't like, obviously these artists are very indigenous to their respective countries and cultures, so they had that to draw from. But just the amount of abstract creativity in these cards is nothing like any other set in the game. Do I agree? Like I have all the angels right here in Marvel, and it's like I agree with you. I love the angels, but just the level of just craziness that these cards, like these are cards where you could never play this game. This card will make you stop in a game store. If you put that
Yeah.
Rising Sun on the front or behind the front counter of a game store, I guarantee you half the people that come up, if it catches out, be like, what game is that? Like off the bat, 100%. So I think that this, from a complete objective standpoint, I haven't seen art in the game like this. The only art that came close is Dust Hold On. And then there's little stuff
Yeah,
that's
I
really
agree.
fun for me. Like News, I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name, but News artist is also who made Uziri. Enigma's artist is also who made Diadem, A Dream State, and Miraji Metamorph. So like there's odes to those same classes in the artist. I urge anyone who's watching this, go on February, open up one tab with the part the Mistveil cards and one tab with the search cards function and do it by artist. And you'll see like a lot of the dynasty cards that were made are now made by the same artist. And like there's parallels you can draw, which is really cool. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I think I think this artwork is perfect for a set that's also expanding into a new region, because this type of artwork is artwork that is going to catch someone's eye, which is what you want in a set that you are literally bringing to an entirely new market and more eyes. So, yeah, I think it's not close, but again, every art is biased for a certain person.
Yeah, no, I agree. The art is, of course, subjective, but I think we both mentioned Dusk Till Dawn as being one of those high watermark sets, and I would agree with that. I feel like Dusk Till Dawn is also one of those sets, specifically because of the way that they handled the Marvels in that set and the Angels in that set, and the way that it felt cohesive as a storytelling device. The art itself functioned to tell that story of light versus shadow. And it looks like we're getting some amount of that with these types of cards, albeit not necessarily perhaps to tell a story, and perhaps more to allow a region to tell its own story. And I think that is so cool. And what a great way to sort of incorporate this new region to the world in Flesh and Blood, and also the new region in our world here, gaining the game of Flesh and Blood. So I think that's very cool. We're visiting Mysteria. We're gaining Japan as a player in this game, and we're celebrating their welcome with cards that are just absolutely just out of this world beautiful. And we can also celebrate the win of TCG Talk today with a record high 56 points. It was not rigged at all. He only said Kano. That's all he had to do. I mean, at this point, we just figure out the meta of this show. And no, I'm just kidding. No, but it was a very good answer and a very well fought and hard fought battle by both of you. So TCG Talk, give us a victory lap speech, sir.
Oh Lord, I never think of what I'm gonna say for these. I don't think Parker does either.
No.
Wow. He
No.
just said, I don't ever think about what to say. And clearly neither does Parker, because did you hear him last time he won? That's what he said.
Well, it's funny because
The bar is low.
The show that we mimic around the horn, or like have inspiration from, they always have something they want to like say if they win that episode. No, I'm super excited for Mistveil. I think
we're mimicking a show?
Oh no, yeah, oops. I'm
show?
super excited for Mistveil.
Oh wait, oops.
And I've loved the way that LSS has marketed this spoiler season, like these piecemealing stuff, like because they're in New Zealand time. It was so much fun for like that 2-week period where you literally woke up to a spoiler every day. That was really funny.
Yeah.
I'm really excited, and I personally think we're gonna see something in the set that people are not expecting. Like I think people see a lot of these instances and they're like, they're not that good, or they're a little weird. And I think I personally think this is the part of the set that's supposed to be like an ode to that culture, less so like, yes, they're going to play a part in the actual gameplay, but I think that what they've shown early on has just been, they're trying to pay homage to the market that they're going into. And I think that there's parts of the set that are going to wow a lot of people just by, if you put the two things together on face of like what these heroes need to be good. So I'm really excited to see what they bring in. And also, I'm going to call it right now. I said it before on those show. I'm excited to see Enigma's Demi Hero or Transcended State, because I'm pretty sure we're getting that. And I hope I'm right on that, or we're right on that, because other people have that opinion too.
That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. Should have just said Kano more tonight. No, it was just at the right time. That's the thing.
Kano.
Oh,
He didn't
I'm going to
just
say one
say
more
it.
thing.
He said it
Just
because
because we have the platform.
Kano.
Just because I have the platform to do it. I have played Kano for the past month, just in my free time. One, if you ever want to have patience, go queue up on Talishar Open with Kano and watch people play like Spell Void 4 into you. Like if you want to test your patience level. But no, playing the deck, for anyone out there that doesn't like Kano, like I urge you to play it on Talishar with someone that maybe has played the deck for like just like 10 games. I guarantee you your entire opinion will change on Kano. Like I didn't inherently dislike Kano a ton, but I was like on the fence about it. But now I understand like how hard that deck actually is into a format that is prepared for it. So like if you don't like the hero, go play that hero for like 20 good games on Talishar, and I guarantee you your opinion will change.
Yeah,
Figured I'd say that.
we had a heated debate via Discord.
Dude, it was
Yeah.
like mom and dad were fighting, and I was like,
And
Oh.
and you felt very strongly. Has your opinion at all changed after that, after going through those games? Because that's something I suggested towards the end. It's just playing the deck.
No, the my opinion has definitely changed. It's changed, not so we won't go too long because we're into the show, but my opinion on what Kano can constrict hasn't changed. I still think that's there, but my opinion on playing into that deck and understanding what the deck's trying to do has changed. Like even going to my army and playing a Kano, I think a week ago, like I was representing lethal and I was at 26 and I knew exactly what he had to have in his hand to kill me. Like
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and-
See, here's the
and it-
thing. I'm
it
gonna
created
interrupt
enough
you
thing
because
of
the
where
chat
yeah.
is perfect right now. Kano is hard, but it feels like I don't get to interact with it against it. And what you're pointing out right now is the subtle interaction that people don't understand if you don't know what the Kano does on their side. So, do you agree with that?
Yeah, like I knew how many resources they needed to win, and I knew how much damage they had, and I knew like, okay, they're gonna buff it by 2, which gives them 10 plus damage. I need to minus it by 2, which gives them minus 10 damage. Whatever. Won't go through the whole turn cycle, but yes, is there a certain level of interaction with certain decks? Yes, but if you understand the damage thresholds and how much like it minuses or pluses, like then the deck becomes a lot less scary and more the interaction comes before that combo turn where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to keep my life total at a certain level. Like I need to keep it at 31 because that will force the Kano to over buff by 2 after my AB in order to kill me, right? Like little stuff like that. And you're only going to get that by playing the deck or sitting down with somebody that knows the deck really well.
I will say
Highly
this:
recommend.
it even goes layers deeper as you learn the deck more and you learn what certain cards like are really impactful at certain times. Because at certain times you go, okay, yeah, the threshold is X, Y, Z. Yeah, I don't want to drop below this. But you can also look at the game state and say, okay, well, in order to pull off the combo to this amount of damage, I'm okay taking some right now. Is it okay to take this lesson in lava? At times, the answer is actually just straight up yes. You can take this random like damage because you know a lot more about the matchup. And that's one, again, it's the interaction that players aren't either getting, they're not learning, or they're unwilling to go so far as to learn which cards are and which moments are more important. That is just fundamentally different. So it's interesting to hear you talk about that because we did have a conversation about it. And you jumped onto the deck and seemed to have a good time with it. But
Yeah, it was pretty good.
that is our show, everyone. Congratulations again to TCG Talk for winning and saying the words Kano. And Breezy is making sure he's writing the note down. I saw him do it. That next Friday, he's going to mention it first.
Yep.
He's going to do it
That's exactly
first.
what I'm gonna do.
But
Unless
unless we have
a banned words list.
That's what we should do. Yeah, let's add that in. Let's go ahead and rotate Kano as a word to living legend status. But that'll do it, everybody. Congratulations again. Thank you for hanging out with us, and make sure to wash your hands. Someone said to throw a piece of paper like they do at the end of Around the Horn. So there it is. Goodbye. See you later. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.